Hi guys. Megan and Tina have been asking me to do a video for our Teal Hearts for Ovarian Cancer awareness page, and I've been hesitant because I don't do too well public speaking or talking too much about a cancer. It's easier for me to write. Um, it's less emotional for me. Um, I try to be as honest and as truthful as possible when I write what happened to us because it's very important for us that you know what life is like with ovarian cancer. You know, living with it, dealing with it, life after. Um, Tina wanted me to put it into a video as far as how it affected us, or as a family, how it affected us, or me, because I was the caregiver. It's hard to say. I mean, did it affect me? Absolutely. Am I the same person I was 12, 13 years ago before we started all this? Absolutely. Um, Tina went through some horrific moments that we hardly ever talk about. Um, it's hard to understand when you're not there, or when you're on the other end looking in. I think the hardest point of this whole thing was dealing with all the downward spirals that we encountered. Um, for instance, her first surgery went well. We at the time didn't know that it was cancer. Doctors were pretty vague about what was going on, but always reassuring us that it was going to be okay and everything was going to turn out fine. During the first and second surgery, we had already found out that it was ovarian cancer, that it was stage 3C, it was an aggressive cancer, it was spreading quickly. Tina and I didn't have children. Tina and I didn't never had children, but we had tried between the first, the second, and the third surgery to harvest her eggs and freeze them, so that we could try to have children. Um, that failed because she wasn't producing them at the time, and we found out during the second surgery that the cancer was spreading rapidly. We we hard, we hardly had any time to think about certain things, and when we went from the first surgery to the second surgery, um, the doctors reassured us. Well, the doctor we had gotten had reassured us that everything would be fine. It was more of an exploratory surgery to see how fast the cancer was spreading, where it had spread to, and what we can do to salvage as much of her reproduction system as possible. When when the doctor came back from surgery, it was all okay. Well, we'll see what happens. I think the hardest news I received was that Tina had coded twice And the second time she had coded, it was much harder to bring her back. The doctors were afraid that if she did go through a second surgery, that it would be harder for her to either recover or come out of it. Um, she was experiencing some issues with her blood, and they were afraid that it might clot, and those are issues that we dealt with before this third surgery. But finding out that she had coded twice, they had lost her pulse, we had a hard time to bring her back. It was a hard moment. I think that's where it got a little real for me, especially because we hadn't even been together for a year. We had just been dating. We just moved in a few months prior. We I think we were scared once Tina told us. Once the doctors told Tina what they wanted to do in the third surgery, depending on how fast the cancer was spreading. So we waited a few weeks, and during the second surgery, I said to Tina, "Do you want to get married?" It wasn't very romantic. I don't even think we never thought about getting married. We never thought about. I mean, we were happy, we were in love, we were living together, and so it was pretty much it. What else do you need? Um, but I was having a hard time with the doctors. I was having a hard time with nurses. I was having a hard time every time I had to go into the hospital. Oh, you're the boyfriend. You're not this. You're not that. I remember sneaking in and out of the hospitals, trying to get in the morning early, or staying around in the evenings that no one would see me, so that I would be with her. But she said, "Yeah, let's do it." It made sense at the time. So we proceeded. We waited for the results, and we found out that the cancer was spreading rapidly. It spread to the lymph nodes, the omentum. So we knew it had to move quickly. The doctor said, "We're scheduling you right away," and we didn't have a chance to save our eggs, harvest them, nothing. Everything was coming out. They were talking about a full hysterectomy, and then chemo. And everything moved much quicker this time around. I know we had some issues going in because Tina's blood had some issues, and they didn't want to go through with it. We had to wait another week after they found out her blood had some more issues. Then we went through it, no problem. Third surgery was much easier. Never had an issue. Tina was weak. She was very weak at this time. And then when she came out, she was okay. In pain, cold, recovery room. When she came out of the anesthesia, she was pretty happy. She was talking about getting married and what she wanted to do and all those things. And I think we said during that time we had already set a date. I think this was July or something, July 2002, and then we set the date for August 17th, 2002, and we went through with it. I have no idea how we prepared in less than 30 days for a wedding. She was full of energy. She was happy. And that's really all that mattered at the time. I think it was nice to see her be herself, and I think that's what the most important thing was at that time. When when the wedding came, she was fine. We had just gotten her stitches out 2 3 days prior, and she was herself, dancing, talking, eating, drinking. We had a great day. I think our wedding was on a Saturday. After we were done with the wedding, we proceeded. Sunday we slept in all day. She was so tired. And Monday morning came around, and that was the first day of chemo. And we like to call it our honeymoon. I think that was for me, it was one of the worst times because this was the moment when they started preparing her. Mind you, she had already had a put in um, during her third surgery, and once they started administering all the IVs and cleaning out the port, and then they started the medication. The first medication was it's poison. It's all poison. But she reacted. It was burning. It was itchy, and she said, "This doesn't feel right." I spoke to the nurse. She's like, "Well, shit, her system has to get used to it. Just give it a couple more minutes and so let's see what happens." And I said, "Okay." So I just held her hand and I said, "All right, just let's see what happens." And, you know, try and be consoling and just be there for her. And then she started blowing up like a balloon. It was just her face, her eyes disappeared. She was gasping for air. The nurse, I screamed for the nurse, and she was. I don't know. I never understood why she took so long to react. I never understood. I honestly don't think she even knew what was going on. Um, by the time she realized what was going on, Tina had passed out because she was, like I said, you could barely see her eyes. She was just, if you ever saw the movie Willy Wonka there, the Chocolate Factory, that little kid blows up. That's exactly what Tina looked like. I mean, we joke about it now, but at the time, it was just she couldn't breathe. She was gasping. Um, the nurse ran for a crash cart, pulled the IV, and I believe she injected her with Benadryl because she realized it was an allergic reaction. By that time, Tina had passed out. She was not breathing. Um, I don't remember when or how or what, but I think the nurse called the doctor or something, at the ER doctor, and he ran in. And then followed by him was 2 or 3 other nurses that ran in as well. I remember them trying to push me out of the chemo ward. I don't remember what it's called, and I kept pushing back. I wasn't going anywhere. Um, they put the monitor on her to see where her pulse was, if her pulse was there. It was weak. It was very, very faint. Um, it got to a point where there was no pulse anymore, and they kept hitting her with Benadryl, and it just wasn't working. Um, it got to the point where she flatlined. think that was, like I said, um, it had to be one of the scariest moments for me. Like I've had family members pass away from cancer, but I've never dealt with it head on like this. Tina, Tina coded, meaning she had a pulse. They had a really hard time getting her pulse back. Um, her swelling was going down, but she wasn't breathing. They were doing CPR. They were trying to incubate her, but because she was so swollen, they couldn't get the tube down her throat. Um, and it got to the point where they had to shock her to, to get her heart back. And the first time it didn't work, and I just remember screaming, excuse my language, wake the fuck up, wake the fuck up. Um, the second time she came back, started breathing on her own. Swelling came down. I do remember they did hit her with adrenaline. They did. I think that was the last thing they did. I think that's one of the things that helped bring her back. So at this point, she had now passed away 3 times. But it was hard because you're seeing it head on. You're dealing with it right then and there. Took a while. It took about a couple of hours or so before she came back. They didn't take her. They were going to take her to a room. They waited for a room. But she had regained consciousness. She was fine. She didn't want a room. She wanted to either leave or... I remember the doctor asked if she wanted to proceed with the treatments. It was up to her. But he felt that she was fine, but they would not administer I think it was the Taxol. And she didn't get that. Going forward, she didn't get that at all because they all realized that she had a really bad reaction to it. Later, as the years went by, we were asked, well, why didn't the doctors lower the dose or administer less of it? And I couldn't even tell you why. I think it was just not give it to her, and that's it. So Tina finished her treatment that day, and that night was the worst. Between the throwing up, between the pain, I had to take her to the emergency room. They didn't know what was going on with her. They couldn't understand what was going on with her. We wound up going back home after everything subsided. It was a hard month. She couldn't eat. She didn't want to eat. Everything tasted like metal. Everything had a funny feel in her mouth when she was eating. I think at one point, all I was able to give her was mashed potatoes. That's all she was eating at one point. Second round of chemo the following month was as bad. Nothing of an allergic reaction, but she did, in the evening, we did go back to the emergency room. She experienced a loss of vision. She experienced she was paralyzed from the waist down. She couldn't move her arms. She was in pain. It took me a long time to get her in the car. It took me a long time to get her out of the car. It was literally dead weight when I was carrying her. She was crying. She kept throwing up. At one point, it was blood just coming up. It was. it's definitely an experience that people, I wouldn't wish it on anybody. Um, Third chemo treatment, same thing. There was not much difference. At this point, it was just, Tina was so frail, so skinny, so weak. It was just, wasn't eating. The pain was horrible. It literally got to a point where, all you heard from her was, "I want to die. I want to die. I can't do this. I don't want to be here anymore. I can't do this." And you hear it so much that all you want to do is take that away, take that pain away. It's hard. How do you help someone like that? You can. You're pretty much helpless, as she is. Again, someone asked me a couple years after, like, if I had had the opportunity to take that pain away or to help her stop with all of this, would I have taken that opportunity? Would I have done it if she had asked me to? Probably. Like I said, I don't know. I couldn't tell you today if I would do it, but seeing someone go through so much pain is horrible. Um, when she decided to end her chemo treatment after the third month, we were done. That's it. She said, "If I'm going to die, I'm going to die on my own. I can't have this take me like this." We prepared for everything. The funeral. I mean, Megan's not my daughter by blood, but Tina said, I want you to raise her. So we tried and prepared as much as we could for that. What to say to Megan or what to do. Um, Tina wanted to start writing letters for her so that she could, so that I can give them to her on a yearly basis. I think the most prepared I've been in life is for Tina's death. That was that was I think that well not I think during the time that we stopped chemo, that she stopped chemo, and we prepared for the worst, and days turned into weeks, and then weeks turned into months, and then months turned into years. I think that after the second or third year, we were like, what do we do now? Our CA-125s were at the lowest. Our scans were coming back clear. We were lost, honestly. I mean, what do you do after all this? You're preparing for the end, you're preparing for the worst, and all of a sudden you're being told that your scans are clear, your blood's coming back low. What do you do? You think that you would say, okay, well, I'm going to continue my life. Yeah, you do, but then how do you do it? And that's one of the things we had a hard time with. We always prepared and thought that the worst would come at any point. The doctors would always say, well, you know, after, we don't think that, well, most women don't survive after 3 years. Most women don't survive after 5 years or 10 years or 7 years. And I tell you, 3 years came, Tina's still here. 5 years came, Tina's still here. 7 years came, Tina's still here. And then that final number is like when they say a woman is diagnosed, after a woman is diagnosed with ovarian cancer, she dies within 10 years. And then 10 years comes around and you're walking with your wife at the New York Revlon walk, and she's saying, what now? Um, do? You start over, right? I think after the 10th year, it was just like, we need to snap out of this. We were living day to day, basically, because we just never knew what was going to happen. And that was okay. As long as she was okay, as long as she was happy, as long as Megan was okay, as long as she was happy, it was great. Um, but living like this and not dealing the normal life, it's a little hard. During the process, we bought a house, we lost a house, we had new cars, we lost new cars. Um, that normal life that people live didn't didn't really matter. As long as I was able to say, "You want a house? Let's get a house." They're gonna repossess it. Okay, no big deal. Um, New cars, it didn't matter anymore. I mean, we were so in debt with the medical bills; it was horrific. Uh, who recovers from $1 million debt, almost $1 million debt, just in medical bills? It's unreal. Um, but it didn't matter anymore. It's not the life we were living. So so when people ask me, when Tina asked me to do a video and tell you that, did it change us? Absolutely. It affected us all. If you met me 12, 13 years ago, I was working in retail. I had 15 some odd years in retail. And it was always about what I had, how much money I was making, name brand this, name brand that. Nowadays, I can care less what your name brand is or how much money I have or how much money I'm making. Um, I became a much more compassionate person. Um, Empathy became huge. I embraced a lot of the more important things. Of course, I changed. Anybody changes. Um, it affects us all. It's ovarian cancer. I think it's one of the worst cancers that I've seen. But then again, I dealt with it directly. My grandmother died of cancer. My father, my uncle recently. I've had family members that died from cancer. I've had friends, and as painful as those have been, dealing with it directly is even worse. And yes, it does change you. Yes, it does affect you. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman or a child, or it's not a woman's disease. It's if you love your wife, if you love your mother, if you love your daughter, if you have a partner, it affects her. It's going to affect you. Did Tina change between that time and this time? Absolutely. Uh, the person she isn't today. And you can tell that because of the friends she had at one point. She doesn't have any of those friends anymore. I can count how many friends she had before, and I can tell you none of them are around anymore. And if they are, it's surprising to me. But yes, she's changed, and I think for the better. I think we've changed for the better. So am I thankful for that? Absolutely, absolutely. Um, I think my daughter is a better person for the experience that we went through. She's, I mean, you read her, you read what she says, you've seen what she does with people. I don't think we could have done that, living the life that we would have lived if Tina hadn't been sick. Um, so even though ovarian cancer, was one of the worst things we dealt with, yeah, we did come out on the other end and much different people, much better people. But I think that it shouldn't take something like that to have people realize that they should be a little more compassionate to others, or give them a little more empathy or care, or actually care when they say, how are you? How are you doing? But just take the time to listen. That's even important. I hope this made sense. I know it's long, but I probably won't do another one. We continue to do this because we want to have you understand that it's not just cancer. It's everything to do and everything that comes with it. Dealing with it, living with it, especially life after it. It's it's a trip. Not a great trip, not at all, but definitely a trip. Anyway, I hope that, like I said, I hope this made sense.